Hi there, and welcome back to Vinyl TV. My name's Craig, and have you ever heard of the term loudness wars? I'm pretty sure you have. I think most people have heard that term and sort of know what it is, but if you're not quite sure, loudness wars is something, or loudness war is something that's been going on for over a decade now, if not longer. And basically what it is in a nutshell is the record companies want to make the album that they're producing as loud as possible in order to compete with other albums. And the analogy that I sort of came up with in my head is, you're at a concert and you've got floor seats and you can't see really, so you stand up, and then the guy behind you stands up because he can't see, and then the people around him stand up because they can't see, and eventually everybody stands up because nobody can see, so they're all standing up, and eventually the whole auditorium is standing up. So then now nobody can see again, so then you stand on your chair and you make it so that you can see, but then the guy behind you stands on his, and so on until you've got everybody all in the whole auditorium standing on their chairs, and still they can't see because everybody's doing the same thing. Well, with loudness wars, it's kind of got out of control. Because it's one thing to turn up the volume as loud as they can when they're recording a CD or a record. But that wasn't enough. In order to fool your ears into making the music sound even louder, what they started to do is they started to compress the music. Now, what that means in this case is all the loudest signals were as loud as they could be before they went over and started to distort. And all the quiet sounds on the record were also brought up so that they were loud as well. So instead of having a record where, you've got loud passages and soft passages and, everything like that, you've got a record where everything's loud and it's all loud and there's no dynamics at all. Now, music is, this is important because music is composed of several things, mainly, rhythm, melody, and dynamics. You go to an orchestra, they don't just all play loud the whole way through, right? They play soft and then they play loud, So it's very important. Dynamics are an integral part of music. They're very important. They evoke emotion and they move you into different moods. So it's important. Now, but a lot of today's music and recent music, it doesn't have any. So this is why a lot of us, me in particular too, being an older fellow, we don't like modern music. I like loud music, yeah. Don't like modern music because a lot of it is brick-walled so that it's all so loud from beginning to end. It's a shame because, back in the 70s, we're all listening to vinyl, right? We didn't have CDs or anything like that. So we were listening to those records. And so, but the hidden blessing about vinyl is that you can't really do that. You can't just brick wall everything and record everything as loud as it can be on a record, on a vinyl record. You just because the reason is because, when something's loud on a vinyl record, the grooves have to be spaced farther apart to make room for the modulation of the groove to make, the loud sound. And then when something's quiet on the record, well, they can put the grooves closer together, which means they can fit more grooves on the record, which there's only one groove on a record, but you know what I mean. So, records with lots of soft passages, they can be longer, and so the way it works is the record cutter, the lacquer cutter that's cutting the grooves to make the lacquer so that it actually eventually will produce all of the records. It knows ahead of time when there's going to be a quiet spot so that it can start to pitch the grooves closer together and squeeze everything in there so that it fits nicely and you can fit as much on the record as possible. But if you have the whole record loud, well, you can't fit as much on. And so what you could do is you could just turn down the level and record everything quieter. You could still brick wall it and make it all compressed, but you could turn it down so that you could fit more on the record. But the compromise with that is that you're not going to get as good a sound quality. Records tend to have very low signal to noise ratio. I mean, let's face it, 45 dB. So the noise floor on a record is quite high compared to, let's say, a CD or something like that. So, but anyways, here we are back in the 70s. We're all listening to records, and we're putting up with noise and crackles and stuff like that. So the louder the signal, the better. But they couldn't compress it because it would have made it so you couldn't fit as much on. And then you got your noise floor here, and you're listening to all this. So when CDs came out, a lot of us were jumping for joy because for one thing, now you've got 90 dB of dynamic range, so the noise floor is way down here, so you're not hearing all that noise anymore. And so now musicians and record companies and performers and bands, they can record their music with more dynamic range because CDs have more dynamic range. So you can record something really, really, really soft, and you're not going to hear any noise. And then you can burst out with something really, really loud, and it's going to sound wonderful. And so this was great, except that this is right around the time, just shortly after that, when the record companies said, hey, we can put it all loud, and it doesn't limit the time that we can record onto a CD. So now we can make it loud. Now we can make it louder and compete with all the other guys. See? So it's a shame because CDs, which I think do sound good, had the potential of having this beautiful, ability to have such dynamic range, and it very quickly was not utilized because they wanted it loud. So that's the story behind the loudness wars, and it really does rob from the music. And it's all so loud. And, when someone hits a drum, you want that drum to be loud, and the rest of it, you want to feel that drum beat in your chest when you turn that volume. You don't want it to all be just the same level. So now that vinyl has come back for the most part, I mean, it's coming back. Now it's kind of not very possible anymore, again, to brick wall or compress the crap out of this music anymore. So, and I'm going to give you an example because Rush, one of my favorite bands, put out their last album that they released was Clockwork Angels. And it came out on CD or digital. It also came out on vinyl. Unfortunately, they can't compress this stuff so much if it's going to be cut to vinyl. If they do, it's not going to sound good. You see, because when you master an album for vinyl, and I'm not a mastering engineer, but I'm just going from what I know, it's got to be done a certain way. There's certain kinds of frequencies and things that don't transcode very well to vinyl. Certain frequencies have to be closer to the middle, and other frequencies have to be compressed a little bit, especially the S's, that you can't have too much of that because it's gonna cause distortion and splatter. There's a lot of things that have to be done to the music, to make it so that it can be recorded onto a vinyl record. And that's fine. And, it's all fine and good. But when you're mastering it for a CD or for digital, you don't have to worry about any of that. You can blast it onto that CD as loud as you want, and there's no problem. See, but that's the thing is, a lot of people say, and I'm a big fan of vinyl. I mean, vinyl TV, right? I mean, just look at the shirt. but let's be honest with ourselves. A lot of times the vinyl copy of an album will sound better than the CD. Now, that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the medium itself. Vinyl records don't necessarily sound better than CDs. And a lot of people who collect vinyl and are very into this hobby will swear, oh yeah, the record sounds better. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's because it's a record. It could mean because it's mastered differently with more dynamic range and less compression, and therefore it sounds better. So the whole dynamic wars thing, there you go. I mean, that just proves the point right there. And so, if the CD, which is basically a very close to perfect copy of the original master, doesn't sound as good as the vinyl, well, you've got to think what's going on there. Something's different about these two. It's not the medium itself. It's the way that they were mastered. The vinyl copy wasn't compressed quite as much. So now, again, with vinyl coming back, maybe if the record companies do the right thing, they want to master it for digital, that's fine. Let them do that and do whatever they want. But to master it for vinyl, they had better do a separate master made for vinyl so that it sounds the best it can on vinyl. And that means no loudness war. You can only do so loud on vinyl, and you can only have certain ways that things are done on vinyl. And it doesn't include brick walling the music so it's just all loud like that. And that's how I think that in some ways vinyl has kind of saved music. So, a lot of, new artists are releasing their albums on vinyl. And I'd be very interested, not that I'm interested in listening to a lot of the new stuff out today, but I'd be very interested in hearing, the difference between the vinyl and the CD. Now, coming back to the Rush album that I mentioned earlier, I do have something to show you. And I'll tell you a little short story. I bought the Rush album digitally because I'm a big Rush fan, right? So I bought it digitally off of, iTunes or wherever it was, and I downloaded it. It was a 300 very high quality MP3, 320 kilobit MP3. So, very good quality. And I listened to it. And I'm not really that happy with it. I just thought, wow, it just sounds like thrash metal, or, it was very compressed. There wasn't a lot of dynamics in it. Not what I was used to with Rush. And so I was very disappointed. And I talked to a friend of mine who's a big Rush fan too, and he likes the album, and I don't. So he said to me, well, my friend bought the vinyl copy of the record, and he says it sounds fantastic. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do a little experiment. So because I already paid for the digital copy, I wasn't going to buy it again. Sorry. So I went to a site and I downloaded the vinyl copy, a torrent site, and I downloaded a vinyl copy of the album. And I compared the two. Well, the difference was outstanding. The vinyl copy sounded so much better than the digital copy. And it's not because it's digital and digital is bad. It's because they mastered it differently for vinyl than they did for digital. And they didn't compress it so much on the record, on the vinyl record. It was more natural. There was much more air. It had more room to breathe. The transients were there. And I'm going to show you this on the screen right now. I have two copies of this now. The top is the vinyl copy, and the bottom is the digital copy. And you can see right off the bat that it looks like the digital copy is louder. Now, I normalized both of these to 0 dB. So they're both coming out at exactly the same level as far as what it says on the meters. So when you play them both back, they both peak at 0 dB, right at the top of the meter. However, the bottom one, as you can see, is generally much louder. You can see that. But look at the vinyl copy on the top here. Look at all these peaks. Look at all these transients, all these spikes. These are all the loud signals, the nice punchy loud drums and guitar hits and strums and vocal hits and just all the dynamics that are on the vinyl. You can see these. And these are, some of these, look, some of them are hitting the top of the, the top of the level here. See here, right there. You see? And the bottom, those have been chopped off. They compressed this, and you do not have any of those dynamic transient hits in the digital version. It's not because it's digital. because you can certainly take a vinyl record and record it onto a CD and then play that CD back, and it's going to sound exactly the same. I don't care what anybody says. It's going to sound exactly the same. You can take the two and compare them all you want. If you can tell the difference, I'll give you, I don't know. You won't be able to tell. If you have a good CD player and a good, playback system, you won't be able to tell the difference. Digitizing music does not, if it's done properly, does not change the sound of it. Digitizing music at a proper bit rate and a proper sampling rate and bit rate and bit depth and all that is very, 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 very transparent. It does not augment the sound. So if you take a vinyl record recorded onto CD, when you play that CD, it's going to sound like a vinyl record. Simple as that. But they've cut off all of the nice, loud, transient drum hits and passages and things like that. And those are the things that, to me, excite you when you're listening to music. Those nice surprises when he hits that drum really hard, or that does that drum fill and it bursts through those speakers like a bomb hits you. That doesn't happen on this digital mastered copy. Okay, so if they'd mastered the CD the same way they mastered the vinyl copy, it would have sounded just as good. But they didn't. So Rush, they were smart. They said, well, if they want to buy the digital copy, they're going to get brick wall, compression. If they're going to buy the vinyl, we're going to have to give them the uncompressed version. And that's what a lot of us want to hear, is the unbrick-walled version. I don't want all of my music to be the same level. So anyway, the point of this video is that if vinyl stays popular and grows, then, record companies are going to be forced, unless they want to make crappy sounding vinyl, they're going to be forced to master the vinyl separately than the digital versions, and the vinyl is just going to sound better. It's not going to be as loud and as, and a lot of the young people, maybe they're just used to that. They put the song on, it's like, and all the way through, it's all the same level, Maybe that's what they want, but not me. I like to have, my ears need a break once in a while. I need those, quieter parts to happen. And then the louder parts come back. The contrast between loud and soft is almost as important as the rhythm and the melody in the music. And so that's why the title of this video is, Could Vinyl Save Our Music? And that's really all I wanted to talk to you about today. So thank you very much for watching. And by the way, sometimes you buy a vinyl record of a re-release of an album, or an artist releases a new album and you get the vinyl copy. It sounds like crap. That's because they didn't remaster it for vinyl. Doesn't mean the vinyl's bad. Doesn't mean the CD's bad. It's just the difference in the way they were mastered. And that's all there is to it. There's in fact very little difference between the sound of vinyl and CD, other than the fact that vinyl has crackles and stuff like that. Unless you buy a spin clean. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Keep spinning those records. I know there's lots of great videos out there on YouTube about vinyl, and I watch them myself. And I'm a big fan of it, and I love listening to it. Sounds awesome when it's done correctly. So thank you for watching. Be safe. And remember, vinyl is final. Cheers, everyone. Take care.